think it's come out pretty well overall.
Yeah, I'd have a few to make sure though.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll test it tonight.
Definitely test it out.
If past form's anything to go by.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Do you remember the evening in the tasting bar I met Crazy Ivan?
Oh yeah, I remember you picked him up. No, you picked him
I
up.
think I'd had a couple of warm-up beers at Rocks before I got to Willie's. Yes, and met Crazy Ivan, quickly put him on my shoulder and spun him around.
Yeah.
He's the last remaining member, mate. He's a relic. You can't really be doing that. Oh, sorry.
You'll do it too.
Yes. Yeah, anyway, I guess we've got to talk about the beer.
Bit of beer.
Yeah,
Beer
yeah,
chat
yeah.
now.
Mostly drunk it all now.
I'm hopeless.
Yeah.
That's fine. Well, Matty, take us from the journey. Or maybe you want to start with the original one.
Yeah, so
Joel
probably knows more, I guess, about the original one given he brewed it. So
Yeah, well, I think this is basically the same recipe, but it was sort of when we did start talking about putting the original brew down in Sydney, and the plan was always to come up here and do the second one.
Yeah.
But obviously COVID got in the way, so it was a year apart. We wanted to do them much closer together. However, you know, I think Matty and I started talking about just putting our heads together, and then you start talking about ingredients, you know, and like, you know, where you're sourcing the ingredients from, you know, and I sort of had a base NEIPA recipe I wanted to use, and Matty started talking about that he could get his hands on some New Zealand hop ash, which is a little bit harder to come by. Yeah, so we put together like, you know, pretty classic recipe, I suppose, when it comes to a NEIPA, you know, just lots of base malt, some wheat and lots of oats, a little bit of chip malt to hold that haze. And then we started talking about hops, so I think we did something I'd never done before as well. We did like basically what you could call it a day zero dry hop, where we like mixed up all the hop ash and put it inside the fermenter as we were knocking out. So as we finished brewing it and we're filling the fermenter, we already had the hop ash sitting in there. So it's sort of like that day zero dry hops. That's right. And so as it starts to like, that's these sorts of styles of moon IPAs with that really aggressive yeast, they kick off really hard overnight. So all that, you know, fermentation is going to be starting to drag all the hop ash through the fermenter and like really get some nice extraction from
to
it.
explain the hop hash, it's literally like a big kilo block of hash. So when they process the hops, this is from New Zealand, they do it different in each region, but it basically goes through the palletizer and it's all the leftover sticky resin basically on the palletizing machine.
Yeah.
And they get in there and basically scrape it all off.
Yeah.
And it's so sticky, like you get it on your hands, that it takes you a few days to actually wash it off.
Exactly.
And then, yeah, you'd have to mix it up in like basically boiling hot water to try and break it up from the big chunk.
Yeah.
So that's good fun.
Yeah, it's just like so resinous. I did both of them, I think, when I mixed them up and put them in the fermenter. But yeah, you're there for half an hour just mixing it through.
I think it's still down the face of the tank, actually.
Yeah. It's something to remember. Yeah, really fun to work with. Like that's, I guess, one of the fun parts of being a brewer is working with new and exciting ingredients and stuff that, you know, is a little bit hard to come by. You know, we use some nice other hops throughout the brew. We use Sabro and Amarillo and Simcoe. You know, some great American style hops for IPAs. I think Sabro was still quite reasonably new at the time, as it wasn't getting used quite as regularly back in early 2020. But yeah, the hop ash I think really is sort of the star of the show.
Yeah,
in this
definitely
beer.
comes through.
And being a New Zealand style hop ash, you know, I think we were talking about this before. It's like, you know, you get some nice spicy and it's like, you know, really like limey citrus notes through it, a little bit herbaceous and yeah, I know something a little bit sort of sets it apart from other, you know, regular IPAs using normal American hops.
Yep.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. A lot of hazy IPAs, there's so many of them now, they taste quite similar. So to put something like the hop hash in it, does give it that sort of interesting difference, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we made the beer and we never actually got a chance to try it. I
Yeah, it was
think.
delicious. This is pretty
I'm
much
ready
the
to
same
get
as
it.
that's
Yeah.
where we go now.
Yeah.
Very similar.
So I'll have to take your word for that, but this is interesting.
I think I've still got a big cannibal sitting in the fridge
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah.
It's about a year old, so
I'll
I'll send it up for you if you want.
Yeah, it should be tasting good. Like a year old NEIPA.
Yeah, it'd be great.
100%. And Matty, again, did you use the same recipe this time
Yeah,
around?
so Joel sent me the recipe. We had to scale it a little bit, obviously. What size did you say brew is? 1200?
12, yeah.
So our here is about 3 times the brew length.
Yep.
And it's not always just times everything by 3. It doesn't sort of work like that. You have to sort of do it for your system.
Yep.
I think that's why this one may have come out a little bit stronger. But that's a bit of a hallmark of what we do here. 7.5. So overachieved a little. Joel come up 3 or 4 weeks ago for the brew.
Yeah, about a month ago.
So he did basically what we did when we were there, stood there and watched.
Yeah. Yeah, just didn't have the tasting room or the little loungery to go and fall asleep.
Yeah, that's true. I did have a nap when I was there.
Oh, that's right.
Right next,
a long weekend.
right next to the meal as
The
well.
sales reps are a bit softer than the brewers, mate. They don't get up and back up as well.
Hey,
Don't power through, but anyway. So yeah, this is due for release this afternoon. By the time everyone watches this, it'll probably be already out and about.
Yep.
Over at our friends at Scratch Bar. So we've got 3 Willie The Boatman beers they've brought up, plus this beer, and then 3 of our beers. So should be quite a nice afternoon.
Yep.
Get over there and
Awesome.
have a few beers.
So it might flow on till next week, just depends. So
Yeah,
I'll
and
tell you
then,
what, it's pretty, like sometimes these beers are quite green when they're like in their early stages, but for this to be like literally day one of the package, it's tasting sensational.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much ready to drink, and sometimes these beers are just going to soften out a little bit and probably be better in the next 4
it's
months.
actually, tasting it yesterday, I was like, wow, this is green, because we just transferred it. And even in 24 hours, it's amazing how much it'll change.
Yeah.
Like all the hop flavour will start to come out rather than that sort of raw hop matter that you get because there's so many hops in it. But yes, I think it's come out pretty well overall.
Yeah, I'd have a few to make sure though.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll test it tonight.
definitely test it out.
If past form's anything to go by.
Yeah, 100%. Well, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming up and being a part of this. And again, last year having us down there and showing us the ropes and things like that down there. So should have been sooner, but for COVID. But anyway, we're here now. So basically, it probably would have been this time last year that we would have come down and done something as well. But
almost a year exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, absolutely great to have you up here and show us around the new place and have a few yarns, a few extra beers as we always like doing. So, and and I guess everyone have a look at the social media and we'll have our stockists and everything like that coming up in the next week or so. And mate, there's nothing more to do apart from polish these off and then head over and sample the wares at somewhere else.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, boys.
See you, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Enjoy.
thanks, guys. Thank you.